I'm Pima County Attorney Laura Conover, and welcome to the People's Office podcast. Our goal here is to share and discuss some of the most important information and issues affecting Pima County today. We're having real conversations and reflections on what you care about as we do our part to create change in the justice system. Hello, and welcome back to the People's Podcast here at the Pima County Attorney's Office. I'm Laura Conover. And I'm really excited to come back and do a new episode focusing explicitly on the Victim Services Division here at the office. At the end of last year, we had something really special happen here. We celebrated 50 years of the division. And I'm so thrilled with C.T. Revere and other people from the Comms Division who took our first floor lobby area, a conference room, and turned it into a museum. He had found boxes and boxes of artifacts from 50 years ago, and then again, I think from the 25th anniversary, and just laid it all out chronologically, told the story of how victim services came to be here, how it turned into a nationwide model, and how it continues to thrive today. And it was a really great opportunity to thank our advocates and staff and everyone who makes up the division. It was a great way to bring back volunteers from over the years and appreciate them. And so it's perfect timing now to look forward into April for National Crime Victims Week. And I am thrilled to be joined by two of our advocates out of the division, both Serafin Caraballo and Nicole Morin, to talk about this year's theme of National Crime Victims Week, which is listen, act, advocate. Talk a little bit about what that means and just dive into what it means to be a victim advocate here in the office, what the mission is, what the services are, and to do what we do here in the podcast, which is to take a little bit of extra time to educate on a specific issue. So, Serafin and Nicole, welcome. So glad to have you guys here with me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, we'll start with you, Nicole. And what I was thinking of was whether you could just take us through what might be a typical day for you in the office, which may end up sounding like no day is typical. Yeah, right? I think, yeah. So maybe what all you might see and deal with in a day here as an advocate here in the Victim Services Office, and anything you want to share to expand on why you're here, why you do this, and then Serafin, we're going to throw the same question to you.
Of course.
Perfect. I don't want to be a copycat, but you're right. It's hard to describe a typical day because part of the fun of the job is you don't know what to expect. But usually what we're doing on a day-to-day basis is some level of court coverage. So advocates going to morning calendar where a bunch of hearings on a bunch of cases are being heard, working with victims who attend, or making sure that victim rights are being enforced. If a victim wants to make sure they can be there for a hearing, okay, does this date work? Do they want to be heard? Let's help make that happen. In addition, we're doing case management, so we all carry our own caseload that we're working on, and that's kind of just taking things as they come, reaching out about important events in a case, and then we're also doing our crisis and advocate of the day work, which is oftentimes answering calls from the public and working with law enforcement. Going back to your other question, all this variety helps me feel like I am doing something that has an impact in a variety of different ways.
Absolutely. It sounds like a lot of coordination, like a lot of moving pieces. Serafin, what could you share about what a day might look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, Nicole's 100% right. Never a dull moment in victim services in the slightest. But we're working hand in hand with prosecutors, making sure that the victim's not getting lost in the criminal justice process. The criminal justice process is a very procedural, sometimes impersonal thing. And we work hand in hand with the prosecutors to make sure that the victim is being heard, that their rights are being honored, and that their voice isn't lost. It's very important that their voice isn't lost in this process. So lots of coordination, lots of meetings, lots of conversations, hard conversations sometimes, but always with the mindset of being trauma informed and making sure that we're addressing the needs of the victim.
Why don't you define that term for us, if you will, Serafin, about trauma informed? I know that this has been a big part of sort of modernizing our training. What is, for someone who hasn't heard that phrase before, can you describe that for the audience?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, in the past, a lot of the times that victims were being dealt with, or anybody who has really experienced trauma, it was kind of like I just described the criminal justice system, impersonal, rigid, not really with an eye to understanding what this person has actually gone through. And being trauma informed is making sure that we are truly understanding where the victim is coming from, understanding the effects of the experience of crime on them, and making sure that we're not doing anything that could be triggering. We are coming at them with an open mind, understanding that victims come to us in all different forms. They can be angry, rightfully so. Right. They can be lost. It's confusing. And making sure that we're addressing them as they come to us, and not having pre-decided expectations of what they should look like.
That's so fascinating. Nicole, I'll turn to you. You know, I had a lot of jobs to get through school in customer service, in a wide variety of customer service, about how to talk to people, greet people, make people feel comfortable, etc. But what I'm hearing from Serafin is that this is such a higher level of knowing that you're not just serving anyone, you're really targeting a population that needs you, that needs your colleagues, because they have suffered a harm. And so the approach must be totally different, I would think.
Yeah, I think bringing up customer service is a really good point. We have a wide variety of experience, and a lot of people who do this job also had customer service, bringing like a kind, pleasing demeanor, helping someone get their needs met. But I think it's a really good point that it goes a little bit deeper with this. Yeah. Victims deserve that respect and that dignity, and part of that is coming to them with kindness, coming to them with knowledge, right? I like to go in, even if I'm covering for someone else's case, who are the people that I'm working with? What are their names? How has this crime impacted them? So I'm coming to them with as much understanding as I can bring, while also acknowledging that I'll never understand, because this is their experience, their trauma that they didn't ask to experience.
Their own unique experience. That, you know, that's what keeps things so interesting, as you both have been commenting on it. You know, every case is remarkably different. You know, what strikes me right in this moment, Nicole, is that what you're saying on the surface sounds like it could be easy. I'm just going to pick up this file and I'm going to study who I'm going to sit down with and talk to. But the kind of attention and detail you have to put in at high volume. We're a huge county. You know, we've got 12,000 felonies a year being presented into here. So what are some of the things you do to deal with the volume and to take care of yourselves, really importantly? Maybe I'll move back to Serafin.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of cases that come through this office. There's a lot of dedicated prosecutors, dedicated legal staff that are taking in these cases, and we work with them hand in hand. And, you know, the volume, it can be a lot sometimes, for sure. But we do our best to serve as many victims as possible, and we're getting questions every day from members of the public on how we can help. You know, as far as what I do to kind of take care of myself, a lot of golf.
Right on. Okay. We're probably in the right environment for that.
Yeah, a lot of golf.
Nice.
But, you know, on a more serious note, it's just making sure that I'm mentally checking in with myself when I'm interacting with these people, because we can't assist these victims at the highest level without making sure that we're checking in on ourselves constantly as well.
That's huge, and it leads us, again, we're sort of defining terms. Not everyone's familiar with vicarious trauma, but it's the simple concept that if you are trying to hold space for people and provide comfort, provide kindness to people who have suffered harm all day long, there is this secondary reaction that you're taking harm in, and my philosophy as an administrator is that has to be taken very, very seriously for you and your prosecutor counterparts. Nicole, what has been sort of your thinking on that, and whether it's changed over time about your attitude on how to confront vicarious trauma, and what you share maybe with newer people who join the division on how to make sure they're taking care of themselves?
Absolutely. I think the biggest change for me has been learning to acknowledge that what we hear and what we're working with and what happens isn't normal. And we don't need to pretend that it's normal. This incident shouldn't have occurred. This person didn't deserve to have this happen. Right. So initially I tried to push it down, pretend like everything's fine, I'm going to shove it down. But learning to acknowledge that this isn't okay and this shouldn't have happened, and it's okay for me to be upset by it. It may not be my trauma, but I care, and someone is sharing their trauma with me. So acknowledging that, and it's okay to cry. I'm a big crier. Small things, big things, because it's got to get out.
Right. Don't hold that in. My brother, who's in the mental health field, likes to quote Mr. Rogers. We have a lot of Mr. Rogers quotes in our household. He was brilliant. There's so much more there than people realize. Yeah. But when Mr. Rogers, in real life, was selling the concept of building Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to the Senate to get government funding as a public broadcasting, one of his quotes in that Senate hearing is that we've got to teach people that our feelings are mentionable and manageable. And I say that all the time. And I'm so glad to hear your journey on that, Nicole. I think that's really helpful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you both have mentioned a little bit about work with prosecutors, and I wanted to dig into that a little bit. I'd love to hear how you view the roles. They're different. The mission is different. And where you think your best outcomes are on how you work with prosecutors and what the best approach is that you've experienced or seen so far.
Yeah. As you know, we have amazing dedicated prosecutors in this office, but their position and their focus is a little different than ours, and for good reason. I kind of view prosecutors as people who are building the case. They're looking at legal arguments, they're making legal determinations, motion filing, all of that good stuff, while we're kind of focused on the people inside the case. And that differentiation is good. The prosecutors have to be able to focus on the case and sometimes remove some aspects of it. They're all doing it with the victim in mind, though. But we're really there to make sure that the victim is being focused on. And we're doing that hand in hand. Like I said, we're meeting with the prosecutors and the victims together all the time. And we're helping the victims understand what's going on. The legal system, lots of terms and legalese that is hard to understand. And that's kind of one of our big things, is translating the system for victims, making sure they understand what's going on, making sure their rights are known to them. We get people all the time that come to us first time and they're like, oh, I didn't know that. And so our position, our role is really built on being with the victim, educating them on their rights, helping them exercise their rights. And our prosecutors assist us with that. They help us explain some of the things that we can't. And we we really work hand in hand to make sure that the victim's not getting lost in the process. And my favorite thing about this position, I think, is really our job is based on a lot of things. I think it's the biggest part, though, it's based on a fundamental thought that nobody should have to go through this alone. And that's really what we're doing, and get a lot of help from the prosecutors, but also working in our respective roles.
I love that concept of no one should go through this alone. And Nicole, it reminds me of my years of private practice in law right before I came here, when I started getting hired as the legal victim representative, which is like the third attorney in the room. And I often felt, and some families even told me, we need you to interpret this. We don't understand anything that's going on. Because it's, victims find themselves, including professionals to the highest degree who've had a lot of education. But if you haven't gone through the justice system, we use all kinds of legalese, you called it, right? Which is even of itself, a word that's not used in English. Can you just translate this for me? Like, what the heck is going on? And Nicole, talk to me about, how you've found that aspect of the job to be.
I think it's one of the bigger challenges when you first start, especially if you're someone coming in without a law background or someone who even originally had an interest in working in law. But it's learning, it's paying attention in court, it's working with your prosecutors too. So sometimes they can explain it better than you, and then just read what the victim needs and explain it further. Sometimes it's using metaphors, it's relating it to their own jobs, and trying to find the balance between validating the frustration and demystifying everything without apologizing. You're right, it's not fair that pretrial conference got continued, and no amount of explanation as to why is going to benefit. But we give an everyday explanation to hopefully help demystify it.
That's really well said. Starting about a year and a half ago, I ended up spending some time with family in an ICU, and I was thinking about like lessons from the ICU, because I ended up watching kind of a heated discussion between the doctor and the registered nurse. And they were trying to tell each other, we have different roles here, right? Like the doctor was looking for the scientific answer and what options were available, and I'm going to execute them in these options. And the nurse was saying, I'm here to confront pain and make sure that the patient is protected as much as possible from more pain. And to me, it was like I was sitting there and thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like this could be the prosecutor and the victim advocate, right? It's a different role, it's a different mission. And sometimes you've got to agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. I can only imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that there are disagreements.
Yeah.
These are heated topics that we're talking about. But I think that we're united by a common goal, regardless. We all want justice. The victim wants justice. The prosecutor wants justice. We want justice. Now, are there different ways of getting to that solution? 100%. And that's where it's really about open and honest communication and keeping everybody in the loop, including the victim. Because at the end of the day, they still may be dissatisfied, but we want to make sure that they know how to use their rights and how to use their voice.
And that they were heard.
Yes.
Right? They were heard. So I'm going to throw one little wild card at you before we wrap up. And if I've missed anything, you tell me if we should bring up another topic. But what I was thinking about was kind of where we started with looking back at 50 years of victim services. It broke ground. It became a model that other offices across the nation looked at. It went through phases that look different from the way they look now. If you could think of one thing that you might like to see in the next 50 years, right? That you might like to bring more to the forefront, or to be more knowledgeable about, or to try to stretch ourselves, right? A little bit further into something where we're trying to reduce harm, or smooth the edges off where harm has occurred. I'd just be curious if one thing comes to mind.
I have something that looks like Nicole's sticky. This is going to be a shameless plug for restorative justice. I would love
it.
I would love to see victims don't, like we talked about, victims come to us in very different ways.
Yeah.
And victims don't all want what a person might think they would want. Some of them want retributive justice. They want to see that punishment levied. Others don't. And what I would love to see over the next 50 years is providing different avenues for victims to achieve what they feel is justice. Now, not all of that is achievable, but we can see throughout the nation there are drives to provide more avenues. And one of those ways is through restorative justice. And just seeing those alternative means expand so that we can better our communities and better listen to how victims want to see their cases go forward.
I love that, right? Like listening to what the actual request is and seeing if we can make them as nearly whole as possible, the victim, and perhaps in a faster and more satisfying way through restorative justice. Yeah. Very victim-centric. Nicole, what about you? Anything come to mind?
He bought me time. I was like,
I did. I feel badly, but
it's
why
a good
not
question.
try to be creative? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, giving it a little bit of thought, I think more general education about victims' rights, because a lot of people that we work with don't even know that our position exists until they've been victimized.
Right.
They don't have the choice to get this information. So now they're balancing working through this trauma, going through the criminal justice system, which, as we all know, isn't made for the everyday person to understand, while also learning about their rights. So I think maybe more general education, not necessarily with the thought of, oh, just in case you need it, but more like, here are other resources that you can share with people in your community if they need help or if they have questions.
Well, I love that, because it's almost like the desire to have more, to get more civics education back into the schools anyway, right? I mean, it's literally embedded in our Constitution, right? So if you think about it that way, it's just something we should be at least a little aware of, because it's part of being, an Arizonan, living in Arizona. So I love that. Education, I think we're always going to be on an education campaign. That's what I've sensed here, is that, and you used the word earlier, Nicole, demystifying. I think it was you, Nicole. It's like experiencing harm and then entering this strange world that you have no point of reference, no education on, and then you've got to start somehow getting a law degree on the side to figure out what's going on with your case, right? And so I love that. I love the idea of a never-ending education campaign. Well, I'm thrilled that you both made the time. We sure appreciate you. Speaking of an education campaign, I feel like I learned things, and I sure hope you did as well. And this is your opportunity out there to remember that you can send in a suggestion of what area of the huge and vast criminal justice system you might want to learn a little bit more about. And we can bring subject matter experts in, like we did today with Serafin and Nicole, and take a few minutes to get below the surface and actually dive into the substance. So thank you so much for joining us once again at the People's Podcast. I'm Laura, and to be continued.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and
and PCAO newsletter. We'll have links in the description. If you have a show idea or questions, just email us at thepeoplesofficepodcast@pcao.pima.gov. Until next time, thank you for joining us. To be continued.